Loch Ness was released in 1996. This is directed by John Henderson and it's written by John Fusco, and we have a cast including Ted Danson and Jolie Richardson. We also have Kirsty as Isabel, who is probably my favourite character in this. Well, second to Ted Danson's Dempsey. Being Scottish, I was very excited to see this. Also, being obsessed with Ted Danson, I was very excited to see this, and I'm pleased to say it was pretty decent. And I will not give any spoilers. I don't usually give spoilers in my discussions, but I do want to briefly discuss... Well, I want to discuss the ending, but I want to kind of find out if other people feel the same way, but I'll talk about that with a spoiler warning at the end. Dempsey is going over to Scotland to try and discover the Loch Ness monster. And my big question was, will he find Nessie? And I'm not going to answer that, of course, but I was very keen to find out. I feel like it could have gone either way. It was never clear, obviously never clear what the outcome would be, because I think both options could have worked for the film, and I will at the end discuss what happens. And Dempsey is a very likeable character. I think all of the performances are really great. The narrative, for the most part, is interesting. There were times when it felt like there was a little bit of padding, and some of it focuses on Dempsey's relationship with the other characters. And apart from Isabel, who I did really like, I didn't really care for any of the other characters. So I wasn't really bothered about the characters' own little subplots, but it wasn't enough to really affect my overall enjoyment. And in general, the narrative does hold up really well. And it is filmed in Scotland. It's filmed for the most part in the Highlands, which I was really pleased about, because I get really irritated when any film is supposed to be set in one location, but it's not filmed there. But obviously being Scottish, it does irritate me when films are supposed to be set in Scotland and they're not filmed there. So I was very pleased about that. I've never actually been to Loch Ness. I'm from Aberdeen, but I've never been to Loch Ness, which I would love to go. I'd really, really love to go. And the film, back to the film, it's an enjoyable experience. The narrative flows well. The pacing is good. Yes, there are certain aspects, as I said, with other characters that I wasn't really bothered about, but because Dempsey is a really likeable character and I really enjoyed following his journey, it was generally a really satisfying experience. We have the added benefit of Ted Danson, who's just absolutely brilliant with everything he does, so that made me rather happy. But I will say, even if it weren't Ted Danson, let's say it was an actor playing the protagonist and I'd never heard of this actor, I wasn't familiar with their work, I think I still would have liked it as much, maybe slightly less. But I think it still would have been enjoyable, nevertheless. And visually, obviously, absolutely stunning. The scenery is so gorgeous. So apart from being a little slow occasionally and having some characters that I personally didn't really care for, there's nothing really about Loch Ness that didn't work. I generally enjoyed the experience. And if it sounds like something that would appeal to you, then needless to say, I'm happy to recommend it. I will now discuss the ending, kind of. I won't say what happens at the end, just in case you don't want to know, but I will say that I went back and forth with how I felt about it. In fact, no, I'm going to have to discuss what happens to explain this in more detail. So, big spoiler, I'll explain what happens right at the end. And just before the very end, we get to see Nessie. Dempsey sees Nessie. He gets a couple of photographs of Nessie, and Isabel, the little girl in particular, was kind of upset at Dempsey because she warned him about the lights and how Nessie would run away or swim away, and Nessie did. Nessie kind of disappeared when the photographs were taken, but Dempsey got what he was after. He got the photographs, and people were annoyed that he was going to reveal this secret. There was going to be this conference. He was going to show these pictures and say, look, we finally have evidence of Nessie. And people were really annoyed by this and saying, well, this is not what you should be doing. And I thought, wait, why? For however long people have been trying to find evidence of Nessie, Dempsey has this evidence. Why would you prevent him from showing this to the world and proving that Nessie exists? And I was really irritated by that. But I'd say it took me maybe a good 15-20 minutes, pretty much until the end of the film, to realise that actually that is a secret that's better kept as a secret. Within the film, at least. Because the mystery is probably much better than the reality, for the most part. Because the mystery helps to keep things alive, whereas once they know about Nessie, people will flock there, it will become oversaturated. Yes, it'll help tourism briefly, but I think there is such a thing as too much tourism if it becomes absolutely flooded with people from all over the world. And then over time, it'll just be, oh, well, there's the Loch Ness Monster, and we've moved on from it. Whereas not knowing the truth keeps that mystery alive for longer. I think in reality, I don't believe in Nessie. I don't think the Loch Ness Monster is real. But in reality, were somebody to find evidence of the monster, I would want to know that. I would absolutely want to know the truth. But is the truth over time going to be as interesting as the mystery? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But the point there is that the ending confused me with my own feelings. Because initially I was very much, don't listen to them, show the photographs, prove that Nessie is real. But I sat with it, and I did come to the conclusion that actually maybe, at least within the context of the film, maybe it's better left alone. Maybe it's a secret that's better kept as a secret. Again, in reality, I don't think I believe that. But at the same time, if Nessie were to be real, the ideal scenario is that people who actually can investigate this, people who have the knowledge to date Nessie, by which I mean find out how old Nessie is, not take Nessie out for dinner, and actually try and understand where Nessie comes from, what Nessie's habitat is like. I feel like those are the only people who should even get close to the creature. Whereas obviously in reality, if there is evidence of Nessie, everybody's going to flock to Loch Ness. Absolutely everybody's going to go there, and that will cause a lot of problems. So maybe it is better left as a mystery. So it gave me a lot of food for thought. Definitely made me confused with my own feelings and gave me a lot to think about. And it was quite interesting as an ending. Loch Ness, good film, really enjoyed it. A few things that were not amazing, but in general, it's a decent experience. And needless to say, I'm very happy to recommend it.